Our next guest up here is a new friend of mine, joined me at the Vitae Foundation event in St. Charles, and his name is Al Robertson, and I know y'all know him, and he's on the Annie Frey Show now. He's the host of the Unashamed Podcast. He is one of the brothers from the Duck Dynasty crew. You can find more about him online at alandlisarobertson.com. Al, welcome to the Annie Frey Show. It's great to see you again.
Great to see you, Annie. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. We had a conversation at the Vitae event in St. Charles, and you and your wife did such a good job of advocating for life. But we were kind of talking a little bit about the politics behind abortion. We had an election this week, and a lot of people are asking right now about what the Republican Party needs to do in pursuit of the abortion issue. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your advocacy for life. And you even talked a little bit at this event about how you had shifted in your ministry approaching this issue within your own church. So give us a little bit about why this is a heart issue for you and where you want people's hearts to be when they're advocating for life.
Yeah, and I thought you laid it out beautifully. It's very difficult when you're talking about moral issues in a political environment. And I know people say, well, it's all morality because it's trying to decide what's right and wrong. But really, that's not true. The idea going around right now that somehow, if you happen to be a Republican, because they've been more pro-life than anybody else, that somehow you can negotiate on life in terms of, you know, how we roll this out. We can deal. In other words, we can make a deal with the people on the other side, on the pro-death side, and we'll just find some happy place in the middle and we'll have a decision. But this isn't like we're building a bridge up in Missouri. You know, this is, you know, pro-life people take this very seriously in terms of how it affects their morality and looking forward. So I realize it is in a political environment, but you're not going to fix it with just some kind of reach across the aisle situation. And look, the other side is never going to stop wanting abortion on demand at any time up until birth. And a lot of people say, well, that's not true. People don't believe that, but they do, because we all know there are certain states that once they made that decision and could, that's what they did. So I agree. It's a tricky thing when you're talking about how do you navigate and thread the needle when you're trying to run an office. But when it comes to being on the right side of anything, and especially when it comes to life, you have to be there. It's kind of like what's going on with, you know, Hamas and Israel. It's pretty simple to those of us who look at this as just a straight up, you attack people and rape them, kill them. We don't see there any ambiguity. And I think it's the same with life. So, but you're right. This has been a huge issue across churches. The churches have ignored it for many, many years. As a pastor, I did as well. Of course, I was pro-life, but I didn't talk about it. I've been talking about it from my pulpit. I didn't treat women who were in trouble in our church or in our community with grace and love. That's another thing the Republicans have probably fell short in messaging, was we have to be pro-women. We have to be pro-young men who are in these situations. We have to be pro-life all the way, from beginning conception all the way through a person's life. So I think those are the sort of things we have to talk about. You know, how politicians figure they're going to do it. But if you think somehow that pro-lifers are going to just go to the negotiating table of life and death and say, yeah, we'll take a little death to deal with the other, that's never going to work.
Yeah, it doesn't really appease. I mean, I'm just completely and wholly pro-life. I believe that life begins at conception. I believe it's ordained by God when a life is created. And so if you're, like you said, going to the negotiating table to say a 15-week ban, you know, I'm very happy that those other 25 weeks of babies are not going to be aborted, but it isn't fixing the problem. I'm wondering if you feel as though there's any moral disparity in a political party that says, you know what, this issue is left at the states. Let's let the states advocate for what the states want. And shifting away, I wish that the Conservative Party, and I'm not even going to say Republican Party, because I'll take anybody who believes in small government, would stop waiting for the red shirt to get the win and fix things, because it's not really a small government way of thinking about things. I mean, it's imperative upon churches, like you were talking about, and other people who have this as their heart issue, to get out and fix the problem so that culture downstream hits the politics and maybe changes hearts and minds that way.
Yeah, and I think appeasement is what's got us to where we are. I mean, obviously, and we talked about this the other night when we first met you. I mean, our culture and our country is in a serious position because they don't know a lot about God. They don't know a lot about morality. And that's what founded our nation. That was at the core of the beginning. And that's what's eroded. When you look at Ivy League campuses that used to be preaching schools, that's what they were. They trained pastors, they trained people to go out and preach the word of God. That was the beginning point for all of those institutions. Now, I realize things change over time, but look now what you see. And you see a complete loss of anything from the beginning. And so though that type of morality and revival is the only thing that's going to change. And you're right, way less government and intrusion to begin with. And then you get to the hearts of people. We've decided on our podcast, we have moved upstream from most political discussion. We will talk about, of course, because you have to, it's every day. But we've decided we've got to go for the hearts of young men and young women who are making decisions, and they can make better decisions that build better families. And then, of course, the government will reflect that. The government's only a reflection of what our culture that's so rotten in so many places. And that's not everywhere. I mean, the length and breadth of our country is amazing. But we all know, especially on the coastal elites, you do run into these whole areas of people that is just vile, and many of them don't know anything about morality or God or anything else. So, of course, killing babies is nothing. It's just like murdering and raping people. All of a sudden, we've got to do a ceasefire. I mean, the whole morality concept is lost.
Yeah. We're speaking with Al Robertson. That podcast he's talking about, which you should subscribe to, is called the Unashamed Podcast. You know Al from the Duck Dynasty brothers that we've watched for years and years. You can learn more about it, alandlisarobertson.com. So, we're talking about the abortion issue, but I want to widen the lens a little bit here. You've been in ministry. The Duck Dynasty story has never been absent of a theological, I will say, culture, because it stuck out kind of like a sore thumb watching television and consuming things. It was just kind of make you stop and stare at your television and go, these people are sitting down holding hands praying before they eat their meal. And there's no shame in doing that. And your podcast is called the Unashamed Podcast. But I think when I'm looking at everything in the world, abortion to Hamas, to Israel, to culture, whatever it is, sometimes the only way to make any of it make sense is to remember where I begin, which is that good exists, but evil exists. And I'm wondering how you're seeing that play out right now in a lot of the main stories that really get caught up downstream in the net of politics that should be really looked at from a standpoint of evil that exists in the world.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to call that out and be very clear. And look, show clear pictures. I mean, people, in spite of whether they say they believe in God or believe in the Bible or any of that stuff, everybody faces the difficulties that life brings with it. And good and evil are right there every single day in every single family and every single decision. So it's mostly just about letting people know. And you're right, our family just seemed to pop out of nowhere, but it was reflective of multi-generational faith, running a small business without government assistance that began with an idea and hard work and expertise. And it's really, our family was a picture in a time when we needed to see it of really what America was founded on in terms of our cultural values and also who we really are. And faith was a big part of that. And you're right. We had a California production company, a New York corporation, and some rednecks in Louisiana who love God. It was quite the interesting Bermuda Triangle, but it worked because America saw it. And you're right, the little subtle things. It wasn't preachy at all, but it was evident there was something about these people. And now, of course, we're getting to tell exactly what that is with all our different platforms.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that resonates. And it's ironic. I mean, I live a suburban life, but my husband and I both grew up in country lifestyles. And there is such a familiarity with your family that people can relate to. And it's odd because most families don't live like the Robertsons live and do the things that you do. But the familiarity there, I think, is the values. And I pair the evil and despair that is out there. There's a lot of people in our world right now who want to completely remake reality and put it in front of you and tell you to agree and shut up if you don't. Yep. They don't want to face what is real because it is hopeless and full of despair. Yep. And for whatever particular reason, the success of the Duck Duck Commander Brand and the Robertson family and Al and Lisa, your message as well. There's something very comfortable and cozy about the hope that comes from the message, the overlying message of what you've been able to put out. And I think that right now, in a world full of despair, we have to keep saying that message every chance that we can get.
I could not agree more. In fact, whether I'm speaking to an audience of a few thousand, or like we were the other night, a few hundred, or I'm just sitting across the table at a diner, which I did 2 days ago here where I live, and talking to an individual person, it's always about individuals, individual choices, how I can make a better spiritual decision that's going to put me in a better position to lead my family to a better place. And that's what changes everything. And so we live that way every single day. We always have. We happen to wind up on television. That's great. God gave us an opportunity, but we're the same. We're the same before we ever were on television. We're still doing the same things today. And it's each individual heart, a heart of despair, as you described, in a difficult situation. Man, they've been duped. They've got evil in their lives, and we know the pathway out.
Before we let you go, one last question for you. We're speaking with Al Robertson, the host of the Unashamed Podcast with Duck Dynasty, Al and LisaRobertson.com. For the people right now who are reflecting on the election results on Tuesday and the issue of abortion, which is it's a single issue vote for many, many people. And I remind people, I live in Illinois, and it's horrific to think what the state of Illinois has done on the abortion issue. What kind of hope and encouragement do you want to give the person out there right now who's maybe been hoping and praying for a political solution to this that we're not finding? What do you say to those individuals?
The main thing is you just can't quit. I loved what I've seen nationally from a lot of organizations. You and I both have worked with groups. And look, I was disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I hated it. I mean, I know so many people in Ohio, and I'm just like, I know that so many of them, for whatever reason, didn't make the right choice. But you know what? The next day, we still fight on and we battle on because nothing's changed. It's still wrong. It's still evil. We still know that. We still know what's important with life. So you just have to keep going. We never thought in our lifetime we'd see Roe v. Wade change, and it did. And so we just have to trust. And look, even when bad laws are made, when bad decisions are made, we have bad politicians, we're still the same. We are still consistent. You still reach out to your neighbor. You still find out somebody's in trouble, and you guide them to a better decision. And we just work it that way, whether it's one person at a time or hopefully eventually a whole culture changes. Don't change. Don't give up. You just keep fighting. The fight is worth it because we're right.
Well, more of that wonderful message on the Unashamed Podcast. Encouragement to all my listeners out there to sign up and listen to more of what Al Robertson has to offer. Thank you for your time today. We lead into Veterans Day. We wanted to get some positivity out there, and we appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Thank you, Annie. Give our best to your family.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.